Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the channel. You join me in different circumstances. I'm here in beautiful France, French Alps, and today I'm going to be driving the 2023 Audi RS3 Sportback. Now I have featured this car on the channel before, I reviewed it, but today's video is just going to be about the drive. We got some nice weather, it's quite cold, 10 degrees, nice scenic roads, some fun twisties. So let's get in the car and drive. Now I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of the interior. I already reviewed this car, but just a quick overview. Here's the interior. We got the Alcantara steering wheel for the RS3. Optionally, you can get a bigger wheel, which also has a lane centering assist. Your MMI system here, if I just turn that and mute. And yeah, these seats we're gonna talk about. Heads-up display at front. So yeah, today's video is just going to be about the driving, how it is like to daily this car, because I've driven it for quite a long time now, and how is it like for dynamic driving. So let's begin. But before we begin, an important thing of course to do is turn on the ignition, make sure no music is playing, press the RS button, it pops up with this infotainment, go to performance. This gives us, well, actually you can go to dynamic or individual, opens the valves, and now let's start this thing up. Pop some bangs, nice. Let's get out on the road. Okay, so let's get this thing out of the road. I'm gonna actually start in comfort, so we can talk about how it is like to drive this thing daily. I've driven this car about 8,600 kilometers now. We're just gonna slowly but surely begin our drive. So, daily driving this car. The beauty of Audi RS models, I have found, is that they are very comfortable to drive daily. As someone who drives also regularly a BMW M3 Competition, not my car, that car is very stiff. It is very stiff. It's quite deafening to drive that car daily. However, this car does have adaptive dampers as an option, and you definitely want them because they make this car much easier to drive on a day-to-day basis. With its adaptive dampers, the car feels like a normal Audi A3, so to say. It's even more comfortable than my Mercedes A-Class I reviewed, which is what I daily drive. But that car doesn't have adaptive dampers. So it's actually quite, surprising how comfortable this car is, considering it's a, hyper hatch. So daily driving this car, yeah, you can do it absolutely no problem. Steering is nice and light, in comfort, it's communicative, it's accurate. The sound insulation now, it is based on an Audi A3. Of course, it's not going to be the best sound insulation, but it's fine. For daily driving, it's fine. Of course, when you get it out on the highway, you do notice some wind noise and some tire roar, but it's livable. If you know what an Audi A3 is like, a lot of it is going to be familiar to you. Of course, what differentiates it is the Alcantara steering wheel that I'm holding, which is very nice to touch. It's very soft. Another obviously thing that distinguishes it from an A3 is it's wider fenders. You have to keep in mind that this car is a bit wider on the front and at the rear than an Audi A3. So if you're driving around in French car parking lots, like I am, where they're very narrow, you do have to keep in mind that it is a bit wider. Of course, the fenders don't stick out outside of the wing mirrors, but still, that's something you have to keep in mind. So yeah, dailying this thing, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, the seats are comfortable, they're soft Nappa leather, you have lumbar massage as well if you need it. They're very adjustable. I found the seats to be perfect for my body type. These seats are much better than the seats in my Mercedes A-Class, I would say, definitely. The seating position, now you can sit nice and low if you like that kind of thing, to sit in the car. So they're quite adjustable in that sense. Not as low as I would like. I think you could potentially sit way lower, but it's fine, yeah. The only issue is if you do raise the seat up quite high. I'm 181 centimeters tall, 6'1", I believe, and I do have limited amount of headroom. As you can see, I'm almost touching the ceiling. That's because of the panoramic, that's because of the sunroof this car has as an option. If you don't have the sunroof, then it's gonna be you're gonna have way more headroom. That's the only slight issue with the Audi A3. The brakes are nice and responsive, obviously for dynamic driving, yet smooth and nicely calibrated for daily driving, so you don't feel that they're jerky. The gearbox, it's okay. It's a 7-speed dual clutch Audi S-tronic gearbox, and it's relatively responsive. For example, I'm doing 50 kilometers an hour, the speed limit is 80. We're in 5th gear, I want to put my foot down. Takes a second, it selects the 3rd gear, and we're off. So yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's fine. It could be better, but it's fine. However, this car is all about the thrills. It's an RS3, goddammit, and you're going to want to throw it around, especially on roads like these. So what is it like? Well, with this new A2 RS3, you've got a couple of new features. First of all, Audi has given this car, for the RS3 for the first time, like the Golf R, rear split torque differential, which basically means that it will split the torque between the rear axle on the 2 wheels in the rear axle, depending on the situation, depending which wheel needs the most grip. Therefore, this mode can be activated with RS Torque Rear, and it's essentially Audi's drift mode for the RS3 that you get in the Volkswagen Golf R. Oh, we got some heavy fog in the front. This makes the car rear wheel biased because the RS3 is an all-wheel drive car. It has a Haldex system, which is front wheel drive based. So you feel a lot of the, power being sent to the front wheels and the car essentially being pulled by the front wheels. However, if you switch it to dynamic mode, I found, or the car gets louder, the exhaust open up, the gearboxing goes into sport mode. We're actually going to keep it in drive for now. And yeah, and the car starts to wake up, the steering gets heavier, the exhaust gets louder, and we are off. Now, of course, you can shift the gears as well manually. I'm going to drop it into 4th. And we're pulling. This car is it has 400 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque from its 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine. And yeah, it pulls. This car pulls relatively well. Like, I'm holding 4th gear, we're pulling 5th, and there's the speed limit. It is quite a torquey engine, I found. I mean, if you're in the torque zone of between I'm guessing 1200 RPM onwards, but of course it will start to lose some oomph once you're in the higher rev range. Now, of course, you also have RS Performance mode, which is Audi's Nürburgring mode, is essentially, you could call, and it turns off the safety systems as well as the stability control. Therefore, you really have to be a professional driver to handle this thing. Otherwise, it could be dangerous, but I'm not going to trust myself with that. I'm just going to go into good old dynamic and yeah, enjoy the car. Now when you have the gearbox in sport mode, in manual like I do now, M4S as it says on the digital driver display, it does get a bit faster, the shifts get a bit quicker, the gearbox responds a bit quicker, and then the gearbox is fine, yeah. It does a good job, like upshift responds immediately, split of a second, no problem at all. And when you need to downshift, also relatively quick. So selecting the right gear, is no problem in this car at all. So in sports mode, the dual clutch does actually a very good job. Now, in terms of steering, as I mentioned earlier, the steering is nice and accurate. It's basically has no dead zone areas that I've noticed. It's fairly responsive. It's not overly sensitive, which is what you want. You want, a nice balance. You don't want it to be too sensitive for daily driving, but you don't want to be too vague either for dynamic driving. Now, with steering, it is also important to talk about tires. This car, my specific car right here, has Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires at the front. Now, the car from factory comes with Pirelli P0 tires. You can optionally get Pirelli Trofeo R tires. However, I swapped them out for Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss, which is really not the tires for this car, because these are not the factory tires. The Michelins aren't homologated for the RS3, but these tires are good nevertheless. They provide excellent grip, they provide good feel, you can feel the road surface, and road noise wise, they're okay. I mean, the Pirellis were definitely a bit quieter, but the Michelins are better for dynamic driving. But the steering, I would say it's good in the RS3. It's maybe it feels a bit assisted. You can feel like the power steering doing its job, but I prefer the steering more than in the BMW M3 G80 competition that I also drove. The steering in that car is more numb than it is in this car, in my opinion. I know a lot of BMW fans are probably going to be thinking, what am I saying? But it could be due to the fact that because this car is smaller, lighter, it just feels more nimble. It just feels more point and shoot. You know, you can just throw it around and really enjoy it. So maybe let's just drop the speed a bit. We're gonna go into manual, S, third gear, open the window, and second gear. There we go. And that's already the speed limit. It is so quick. 400 horsepower delivers that speed in an instant. And yeah, if you really want to enjoy this car, you gotta take it on a track or on the Autobahn. On roads like these, it is fun though. I mean, 70 kilometers an hour, you know, it's fun, but I know that this car it has way more potential than these roads provided. Shifting down gears, just third gear, pull, and let that 5-cylinder sing. That engine noise is just what makes this car so special, what makes Audi's 5-cylinder so special, and what makes the RS3 so beloved by many people. It's a unique engine, and we're gonna miss it. The 8Y is the last generation of the Audi RS3 that's gonna have the 5-cylinder. It sounds so good in all different, you know, stages of revs that you give it. In low revs, it sounds kind of like a 6-cylinder, like a V6 maybe. My family had an Audi SQ5 B10, and it sounds quite similar to that, but more raspy, more roary, because obviously it's an RS. But at higher notes, at higher rev ranges, it sounds like a totally different animal, nothing else. Very reminiscent of a V10 because it has half of the cylinders and almost half of the displacement. So that's why a lot of people call this the baby Lamborghini, the baby Audi R8 V10. It really has that character. So for example, if I just drop a couple of gears here, second gear, pull, there it is, just that high end note of that 5-cylinder is just very satisfying to listen to. And yeah, now if we go into torque, RS torque rear, the car feels way more rear wheel drive biased. You can feel the rear wheels just pushing you out of a corner. There's no more of that front wheel bias anymore. And that's been a common issue with the Audi RS3 in the past, is understeer and the fact that it felt boring, you know, fast but boring. But now with this new torque splitter, it just changes the things. It just makes this car way more playful, way more rear wheel drive biased, way more fun. Is it more fun than a G80 BMW M3 competition? To be honest, I don't know. Haven't driven both. They're both very excellent cars, very fun to drive. This is smaller, it just feels more nimble, which makes it more it gives you more room on the road to play with. You can throw it around easier. The M3 is a bigger car, it's wider, it's longer. The RS3 is an amazing all singing and dancing weapon. It's a practical, fast hatchback, hyper hatch, which is great for daily driving. I would say the only caveats I have with this car is its maneuverability. The turning circle for this car is quite big because it has wide front end tires, therefore there's not much room for the front wheels to turn. Therefore, for maneuverability, if you're making U-turns in town, it is a bit of a pain in the ass turning this car around. You have to do multiple 3-point turns usually. Also, you do have to be wary of the front end nose because it has quite a long nose and the hood slopes down quite a bit. You might think that the car has a shorter hood than it actually does, so you do also have to keep that in mind. And the sound system. Now the Bang & Olufsen sound system in this car, the optional surround 3D sound system, it's quite good, I would say. But there's a problem with rattling. This car does have a couple of rattles, which for an Audi is a bit disappointing. Audi usually is known for having solid build quality. This car, after 8,000 kilometers, has started to develop rattle in its door cards and in the speakers. So when you're listening to music loudly, it can be a bit annoying. My Mercedes A-Class doesn't do that with its standard sound system, and it doesn't rattle. And this car does definitely have a couple of drops in its build quality from Audi. But other than that, yeah, this car is amazing. It is really a thrill to drive. Now, in terms of fuel economy, if you're daily driving in town, you're gonna average about from between 10 liters and 14 liters per 100 kilometers, depending on your style of driving. On average, with my soft foot, I can average 12 liters per 100 kilometers. At best, I'll do 10 liters if I'm very soft, driving in efficiency mode. However, if you're out on the highway, you can average at best between 7 and 10 liters per 100 k's, no problem at all. Right now I'm doing about 8.7 liters per 100 kilometers, driving in efficiency mode, letting the car coast sometimes. Yeah, the beauty of the RS3 is it's quite an efficient thing for considering the engine you got under there, because it only has 2.5 liters and 5 cylinders. It actually doesn't consume a lot of petrol. So yeah, in terms of fuel economy, it's quite economical. It has a 55-liter tank. I'm not sure if you can get a bigger one optionally, but on a full tank, you can get about 560 kilometers of range. Of course, you can deplete that quickly if you're gonna be driving like a maniac, but for daily driving, yeah, the fuel economy in this car is good. So overall, the Audi RS3, this is a very capable machine. I would say if you're a novice driver, you know, not a professional driver, you can really hold this thing around corners and have some fun. Is it as exciting as like a BMW M2? Not really. I mean, a BMW M2 is more rear-wheel drive. You know, it has more rear-wheel drive bias. It's just gonna provide you that, you know, excitement that this car really won't. But if you want quattro security, you know, if you just want grip and just go fast around corners with some excitement, this car delivers. And the sweet 5-cylinder engine noise just absolutely makes up for it. It's an amazing engine. It has an amazing noise that you won't find amongst its competitors. Sure, BMW has the M2, which isn't really its competitor, but it has the old singing and dancing inline 6. The Mercedes A45 has a 2-liter 4-cylinder. So really, this is the pick of the bunch, I would say. And unlike the M2, this car's practical. You have a nice usable trunk, you have rear seats, you can haul your family around, and it's more comfortable than a BMW M2. So yeah, the Audi RS3 is overall, in conclusion, this is an amazing car. I love it. I love driving every single time I'm in it. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.